publisher of Yankee T News, publishing up a storm, and tonight reporting a storm.
We need 16 more subs to make it to
And we're up to, okay, 16, yeah, all right. So again, as part of my call to action, first of all, it's Monday, August 25th, the year of our Lord 2025. Time marches on.
Oh, I'm sorry, 14 more subs, 14.
14 more subs,
Yeah,
okay.
14.
That's it, folks. 14 more subs and we get over the first mark, the 1,000 mark. And then it's onward to 10,000, 100,000, a million. Anyway, oh my God.
Provided we're still alive.
Yeah, so tell Tong time. Tong, what other crimes are you hiding? What else are you ignoring that you should be paying attention to? I'm just asking. And then in the case of Tina Peters, release Tina Peters now. Governor Polis, listen, be smart, because sometimes when you delay certain actions, it only makes the situation worse. That's right, for you. So release Tina Peters now. Because, you know, I hate to put it this way, but the Department of Justice does have some rather big fish to fry. Do I need to remind you, Governor Polis, that right now we have 3 grand juries and counting. Will there be one for you? We would love to know. Okay? So free Tina Peters now. Save yourself a lot of trouble. I know the other trouble is waiting for you, but you know what? There's another old saying you might want to take account of. The truth will out. The truth of your election fraud in Colorado will out. Okay, I got to calm down. Yes, so let me.
ICE has turned up the heat in Connecticut.
ICE, yes, oh, that's well. I've been kind of talking about that. I will mention, I did say to good old Tong, until Tong time a few weeks ago, that ICE has arrived to New Jersey. They'll be coming to Connecticut soon, and sure enough, although I think a haul of 65 illegal aliens does seem a little small. I was hoping it'd be bigger.
I don't think they're done yet.
Good point. And while we're on that subject, see if I can find it. This is how we're going to have to do it tonight. All right, so first let me just mention, for those who may not have been following, we have a state representative who just seems to have an instinct for trouble. That would be Corey Paris, of course, from the 145th District, Stamford. Wackadoodle liberal that he is.
Where does he live again?
He might still live in Bridgeport. Did he ever really move out of Bridgeport? That's what we would like to know, you know?
Where's he registered to vote after that?
Okay, yeah, boy, you're really stirring things up tonight, aren't you? Okay.
Illegal is as illegal does.
That's right. Legal is as illegal does. You got it. So to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, I think I did bring it up last week or the week before. So Mr. Paris moved to Stamford from Bridgeport 6 years ago? Does that sound about right?
That's what he says anyway.
Yeah.
No one's ever seen the moving truck.
Okay, yeah, there you go. But they never saw the moving truck. Nonetheless, he was still registered to vote in Bridgeport while he was registered to vote in Bridgeport, but he was voting in Stamford. That is a felony. Just want to let you know, but it's one of these felonies that people just don't take very seriously.
Election fraud doesn't exist unless it's us.
Well, yeah, okay, that's another discussion. Christina Ayala, dare I mention her name? Okay, so Mr. Paris had to kind of walk his way through that, and of course his Democrat buddies kind of gathered around him and made him seem it was an innocent mistake. Yeah, I'm sure it was. So there's that problem. Then, of course, to mention the problem with that his license plate says 145, but it's a state representative license plate, and then there's a married couple in Berlin, Connecticut, who has a personalized license plate that's 145. Well, they've been getting his Easy Pass tolls. I'm sure Corey is very happy. But now Corey really got himself into some trouble. There's a little back and forth on this, of course. Apparently it was on his Facebook account. Is that right? Or Twitter? Not sure. It was either Facebook or Twitter account where he was calling for people to dox and harass ICE agents while they're attempting to do their job in Connecticut. He got called out. The curious part is the Department of Justice did state that they were going to refer him to the Department for Criminal Prosecution, but then suddenly retracted after the Democrats once again came out and supported him and say, oh, no, he didn't really mean that. Nah, this stuff is just amazing. Mr. Paris, this kind of luck has a tendency to run out, okay? So you might want to think about what you're going to do next. All right, what I'm trying to get to here, if I can find it, it's a group. It's called the Greater Danbury Unites, okay? Here it is. Good. Okay, let me show this to you. This is their Facebook page, Greater Danbury Unites, okay? Now, they are a pro-crime, pro-violence organization. They'll tell you that they're immigrant-friendly, but they're incapable of drawing a distinction between illegal immigrants and legal immigrants. So illegal immigrants to them are just the same. It doesn't matter if they raped anyone. It doesn't matter if they robbed anyone. It doesn't matter if they killed anyone. These bleeding heart liberals got to get out there and do something for them. And so what do you have?
Came here to find a better, more fertile ground to rape and pillage.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. And just to use Washington, D.C. as a model here, all right, more than just ICE, it's also the National Guard. Crime has dropped precipitously in D.C. We're heading into day 10 now, where there hasn't been a single murder in Washington, D.C., which is unheard of. It's unheard of, okay? Does it occur to you that President Trump might be doing something right? Okay, just a thought. And you have these guys who think it's okay for violent, illegal immigrants to continue to wander the streets. So Greater Danbury Area Unites for Immigrants, screw you. Screw you. Now, I am guilty here of jumping around a little bit. Let's try this. Okay. All right, let me start with my major theme tonight. So this is the op-ed. Some of you may have seen it and others have not. It asks a very simple question. Should NATO admit Russia? All right, and I'm sure there's some eyeballs rolling. What?
Did Russia even ask to come in?
No, they didn't. You might have a point there. However, I'm going to say it. The Russians are turning out not to be such great strategic thinkers. I used to think they're pretty hot. Now I'm not so sure, okay? Now the problem with this proposal, let me just start by saying that as soon as the Soviet Union fell in 1991, you had Yeltsin and Clinton talking about the idea of Russia joining NATO. But for various reasons, nothing came of it. Later, I believe Bush too, in the early 2000s, may have raised this proposal. There have been other discussions, lots of papers have been written. I'd really like to dwell on this subject later. And who was the other? And then Matt Gaetz, all right, former Florida congressional representative back in April, has dredged up this proposal again. So I'm here tonight to push it a little bit more because I think there's a lot to be said for it. And this is said in the face of what would appear to be obvious reasons why to not do it. All right, if you could, Eric, position that. Okay, so there's the pros and cons that I put together for this idea. So I'm just going to go through quickly. Imagine NATO troops having to be deployed along the border between Russia and China. China would not like that. It's going to cause them to shift a lot of what they do in terms of their own strategy. The other pro, create a huge integrated market. Now there's been, with oil and gas has been trade with Europe and Russia, but by lowering the level of military animosity, you're making other things possible. Provide a gigantic Western buffer zone for Ukraine, for Russia. So, of course, having this buffer zone has been of huge geopolitical concern. the question that Putin's people need to think about is there any kind of a substitute other than security guarantees and actually taking possession of land that would serve as a suitable basis for providing a buffer against future invasion, all right? And I'm suggesting that this form of military alliance will be just that thing. Now, there's another thing here I put here. It's a little more difficult to force the creation of a true post-Soviet Russian leadership for the 21st century. Because as we know, Putin is part of a generation that looks back fondly upon the Soviet era. And you had his good buddy Lavrov show up in Alaska wearing the sweatshirt, right, that said CCCP. Or do they have that reversed? He was trolling us, but he was also sharing his own romantic and sentimental longing for the good old days of the Soviet Union. Well, what may be good old days for you ain't so good for the masses in Russia nor anybody else, just telling you. So there is clearly a culture and a mindset that forms at the center of the current Russian government that is not what you would call, quote, forward-looking. Okay, I don't think they could answer the question. How do you see Russia from 50 years from now? What will it be? Will it be economically, materially, militarily, politically? What's it going to be? I don't think they can answer that question. Now, the other thing seems kind of silly, but it's actually tourism is a significant source of income for many countries. Russia could always use more money. So if you're reducing the hostilities and integrating relationships with Europe, that's going to increase the basis for tourism, you know. And with tourism comes economic development, all these other areas that can only strengthen your economy. Okay, so the net effect is to enable Russia to have a stronger economy. And the other part that I think is an interesting pro, which hasn't really been talked about at all, is that if Russia were a part of NATO, Russia would no longer have to be China's junior partner. Now, if the truth be told, I think Putin chafes under the idea of having to be the junior partner. Their economy is 10% the size of China's. You know, what kind of clout are they going to have? If anything, they're providing cover for the Chinese. Anyway, so that's on the con side, okay? The first thing everybody says is this violates the original purpose of NATO. Well, true. And as Eric has pointed out time and time again, the original purpose of NATO is perflunked. It's obsolete. It's done, okay? It's not serving its purpose, and we're going to add the obvious. The countries, since they lean so heavily on America, have not lived up to their responsibilities in NATO, which only has helped contribute to its becoming a weak and useless organization like it is now. Now, another con would be that the Russian government would be forced to make their government more Western in order to be integrated into NATO, and an even bigger problem, well, these are two related problems. So, okay, first of all, Russia would be the senior military partner in a Russia-NATO alliance. And I'm sure the Europeans are not going to like that very much. But the fact of the matter is that Russia has built up its military, partly because of the Ukrainian conflict, while the others, even while this is going on, have let theirs languish. There are these key military manufacturers in Germany who have made it quite plain they're not ready for what's being asked of them if military spending is to be increased. What are they going to do? Okay, they have a lot of what is the term when you have to gear things up? Okay, there's a period of time, you know, the engineers sit down, design things, you have to prototype, you test, and then you do your pilot testing, and then eventually you'll have a product that's ready to go to market. That takes time, and it doesn't matter if you're talking about guns, tanks, planes, it doesn't matter. And so there's that. Meantime, there's some degree of integrating of the militaries that would have to take place. Now, there's a thought that people would have trouble dealing with. Integrating the Russian military with NATO? What? Yeah, something to think about. And the other con, and I think this is actually a very big con, Okay, there's a whole cultural thing here we haven't talked about. I mentioned it a few times. Russia's manifest destiny. If you're not familiar with it, look it up. I again recommend a woman named Elvira Berry, a writer a Russian expat who lives in Los Angeles. Elvira, E-L-V-I-R-A, Berry, B-A-R-Y. And she has explained the concept of manifest destiny, which still runs through the Russian culture to this day. Sorry, guys, if you're going to hook up with NATO, you're going to have to let that whole manifest destiny thing go. That could be difficult. Okay, so that's the heart of it right here, as far as I'm concerned. If I could just take the time, how am I doing on time, Eric?
Keep going, man.
All right. Okay.
Plenty of time.
Okay. So this is the way I want to put this. When you're looking at a situation like Russia's, and these points apply to any nation, you have the leadership, politicians, okay, of the country, and you have the country itself. If everything is right, the politicians and the nation are in alignment in terms of what they expect for that country in the future. What if you have a situation where the interests of the nation do not align with the political class or the leadership class? I wish to submit to you that the leadership class of Russia does not have the future interests of Russia at heart. They are self-interested, they want their power, they don't care what happens or who gets hurt, all right? Which is a segue to the next point I want to make. We'll get in, there's so much I want to get into about this. I hope you're sticking with me, come on. They got all kinds of good stuff here coming up. All right, this was an interesting one. It's from the Telegraph, a UK publication, and I'm going to go with the pull quote here. Let me read the pull quote. Well, I'm pulling it, they didn't pull it. It would also, according to the Ministry of Defense, calculations based on Ukrainian estimates of Russian casualties, cost Russia an additional 1.93 million killed and wounded for Putin to achieve his goals. Okay, well, all right, so the Ukrainians came up with that number. Let's just note that. Okay, the point to keep in mind here is that we have some history now. Are we approaching our 4th year in this conflict now? Something like that? We're 3 years in, 3.5, and it's clearly cost both sides dearly. So for Putin to sit there and say, okay, this is how we've been gaining territory, what's it going to take for us to achieve our objectives? How many more people have to die, all right? And they did the calculation, and it's not pretty. So does Putin have a calculation for how many more people have to die for them to win? He might, but I just can't help but feel that all right, for example, the Ukrainian people are the first ones who seem to be exhausted and they want to sue for peace. Zelensky's not ready to do it. On the Russian side, neither Putin and the leadership nor the Russian people have any inclination to stop fighting. So for whatever reason, they seem to be willing to bear the costs going on into the future, but to the tune of almost 2 million people? I don't know. I have trouble believing that. But anyways, this is a key, what I think is important. I had to share that with you. What's the next top item here is, let's see if I can find this. I think this, I have to rub it in, all right? I'm not a big fan, all right? Just saying, not just saying here. Where'd it go? Darn it. I got to find it. So the thing is that it's been since Trump took office, right? He has been trying to make nice with Putin. And I think we can say it hasn't been working. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. It's been twice now that he's issued these ultimatums, right? There's a recent ultimatum, and there was another one before it.
And they've already been sanctioned with, what was that? They can't convert rubles into
dollars
or something. Like that.
Yeah, well, I don't think they'd want to do it to begin with. Here it is. Okay, if you could hold that up. Okay, so this is the relationship between Trump and Putin, all right? Trump keeps expecting Putin to play fair. So just like Penis expects Lucy to hold the ball in place so he can kick it, he runs up, and then at the last minute, last second, boom, she yanks it away. All right? Hence Ukraine. So, President Trump, how long are you going to put up with this? All right? I'm sure you have a plan in mind. I'm sure your advisors, the ones you trust, have some ideas too. But, you know, you can't keep doing this. I think you know that. And, I mean, my feelings are that, yes, and I think it's shared in this room, that you have to come down hard now. It's time to get serious with those sanctions. We know of the ways in which the Russians have worked around those sanctions, and it's time to put a stop to those. Now, there was a piece of what I'll call apocryphal information, and part of it, now you already know this, I mean, this is for the audience. The degree to which President Trump needs to call upon the assistance of other nations in order to manage this is greater than we realize. So one of the latest now, so the big problem is getting India to stop buying oil from Russia, even at 30% discount. So now comes a story, it's an apocryphal story, I'm not sure if it's true, that Saudi Arabia is offering its oil in replacement of the Russian oil to India at a 50% discount. So that's a hell of a bidding war. At some point, I guess Russia will just have to give it away for free. Okay, so will that have impact? What's going to happen in the next couple of months? I have no idea. But the point is, enough with the making nice talk, all right? Beating him with a carrot is not working. You're going to have to beat him with a stick. Just saying. All right, next, just to jump to it here. Bolton, good old John Bolton, not our friend John Bolton. This John Bolton in Washington, the one who's probably going to be going to jail for public corruption, where he might have shared some classified information with certain people overseas that he should not have.
Why do you think he's going to jail?
I know. He's a what?
He's a noble. Nobles don't go to jail.
There's nothing noble about him. There's nothing noble about him. Please.
Right, but he's a member of the protected class. He's
Yeah.
part of the nobility.
Yeah, no, but
No,
the mustache really isn't his.
Well, you're right.
No, the mustache is okay.
Because
Okay.
he sold that for
All right.
walrus.
Okay. All right. So hold on, guys. So yes. So remember the Babylon Bee pointed out that the way that he escaped was he disappeared in a herd of walruses. So couldn't find him. Oh, but he came back. That's good to know. Okay. The point is he did something wrong. The full story hasn't been told, but you get these drips and drabs that are suggesting he. All right. The elephant in the room. Perhaps a slightly too intimate relationship with Israel. So we will find out, okay?
Well, in that case, nothing will be done because Ivanka will just say, "Daddy,
What, for him?
Daddy." Israel says John's a nice
Oh.
man.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
No,
Where would you like the
all right.
embassy this week?
All right, Mr. Shaw, your cynicism is deeply appreciated. However, I think there's a growing number of people who are realizing that Israel has overstepped its bounds in more ways than you could count. All right?
Except in the one that they're actually being accused of.
Give it time. Give it time. That's all I'm saying. Which leads to now the Epstein. Thank you. That leads to the Epstein files. So I got some good ones for you folks. For those of you who are still listening, when Eric posts these links, okay, you got to go to the Epstein file one. That's P2. And the juicy title is The Black Book Unredacted. Has anybody seen the unredacted Black Book here? No. Okay, well, it's available. And the link is right there. And it says blackbookunredacted.pdf. So go check it out. And then the other part that's interesting is there's a video, it's a short interview of the guy who actually got the Black Book. Now he kind of hints at how he got it, doesn't really tell the whole story. And then we have a link that goes into Follow the Money. Now, I don't know, just to give you my dissatisfaction, the way people are talking about Epstein and the money, I don't know, there's something still not quite right about it. I think it's because they don't do a good job of linking the victims to the money. There are a few cases, but nowhere. What?
Whitney Webb does.
Okay, all right. Then, yeah, we've got to go find her then, and I'll get that link up. All right, so there's that. Meantime, I'm very concerned about public education. And I'm afraid this story that I saw that's out of Florida concerning, I think it's an elementary school or a middle school in Florida, tells a very important story. Okay, the way the story goes is that there was a child, a teenager, I believe, in the class who, shall we say, is a very opinionated conservative. That might be putting it nicely. The teacher, along with the class, decided to ridicule and mock this kid in the class, and they, in the class, gave him an award as a dictator, the Dictator Award.
Most likely to become a dictator.
Or most likely to become a dictator, yes, correct. All right, so this is very annoying, okay? I would like to give the Florida teacher an award called the Anti-Intellectual Award. I think that this is just one of many examples where teachers have lost their way and they've forgotten why they're there in the first place, which is to impart knowledge and to stimulate thinking, okay? And you might want to throw some creativity in there too. So instead, we have these people who, because they're following various forms and degrees of a woke agenda, are, wait for it, anti-intellectual. Now, you could get into a semantic argument over intellectual, but I think you get the point. So this is a story, it's worth reading, it's worth pondering on, and I think it's worth making a stink about. So I just had to share that with you. Now the other part here, speaking of the whole DEI CRT thing, right, is that a lot of people complain that this is one long, arduous experience in reverse racism, okay? Blaming white people, attacking white people, refusing to hire white people, et cetera, reverse racism. You haven't solved anything. And if anything, you've created more animosity throughout the nation. And it's an animosity that knows no racial barriers, by the way. I'd like you to consider that. So it is a white woman who wins a racial discrimination suit in Wisconsin, right? And there need to be more like them. I mean, nobody doing anything about reverse racism is just ridiculous. Ridiculous. All right, now the other hot item here, let's see, let's find it. All right, this is actually very important. So we were, Eric and Alan and I were talking about this a little bit earlier. As you know, if you're following the news, there was an announcement that the federal government's going to take a 10% stake in the Intel Corporation. This is what you call state capitalism. Now, just to put it another way, Ronald Reagan was famous for his joke, if you get into bed with the federal government, do not expect a good night's sleep, okay? And that's going to be the same here with what the federal government might try to do to Intel. Or, all right, I'm going to trigger you, Alan, you ready? This is going to be a way in which, this is a way the government acts much like the way they run Amtrak. Similar idea. How's it going with Amtrak?
Amtrak is completely, totally self-sufficient.
Oh, it is?
Yes, they don't
really?
get any money from Congress. That was the plan in the 70s.
Oh, yes. However,
starting Thursday, the brand new federally owned and operated trains for the Generation 2 Ocellos will be running high-speed rail, except that it won't be that high speed because the only tracks they're allowed to run them on are not capable of high speed.
Yes. Well, yes, that's just...
But they're pretty.
Yeah, okay. And you know, should we say, I don't know, would we, the high-speed rail, so-called high-speed rail or love train being built in California, would we put that in the same category? Or is that very different?
Being run by the state, so every dollar you spend, you have to spend $100 more.
Yeah, okay. So in the case of Intel, I think the terms are still being spelled out. But most of us look upon this as just, when you're honest, stealth communism. Because that's what the Soviet Union was, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know it. It was state capitalism. So rather than individuals and corporations being responsible for profits and losses, the state was. And what was the state able to do? Bury its losses, subsidize costs. And yes?
Somebody explained to me, like on 5, what the difference between Mandami's state-run grocery store in New York
Yes.
will be and Trump's state-run Intel factory in China will be.
Oh, in China?
Well, I'm not sorry, we're competing with China, so we have to build them here.
Yes.
To sell them to China.
Oh, so, geez, all right. The cynicism is becoming a little intense here,
But again,
intense.
state-run. Why is a state-run grocery store bad, but a state-run computer company is good?
Well, I think we know the answer is not.
Is this like our big, beautiful omnibus
Okay,
bill?
so the notion is a 10% stake is a minority holder, their minority rights. It's going to be a question of how much they throw their weight around in Intel. You know, and what's that 10%
It's only a minority
stake supposed to do?
if somebody else owns 11%.
Yeah, and the other warning, ladies and gentlemen, is that this idea of taking a stake in Intel with the federal government was an idea also put forth by that good old communist Bernie Sanders. So you have Donald Trump taking a page out of Bernie Sanders' book with respect to Intel. This cannot be a good idea. Cannot be a good idea.
Next we'll see him wearing mittens.
Yeah, anyway, let me get to the other stuff here. Time is, need to wind it down. All right, I remind you again about Tina Peters. There is a link up on the Daily Beast that I put up where Trump has been making a lot more noise about releasing Tina Peters. And, you know, I just to throw it in, once you get Tina Peters out of jail, I don't think a minute's going to be wasted in her bringing forth the receipts on the fraud that was committed by the state of Colorado in the federal election of 2020. Yes, they're trying to put it off as long as they can, but it ain't happening. Food additive of the week, ladies and gentlemen, is monosodium glutamate. It's been around for a while. That's true. Here's the molecule. I always love producing the molecule. There you go. Okay, so monosodium is a variation of the amino acid called glutamic acid. Glutamic acid is not an essential amino acid. In other words, our body is perfectly capable of making it. We don't have to get it from foreign food sources. Nonetheless, this is used as a flavoring agent. And the critical part that I just want to share with you is that, that's right, MSG is not only not healthy for you, it's maybe even worse than you think. Okay, a 2019 study, the British or BMC research notes, quote, chronic toxicity of low-dose monosodium glutamate in albino Wistar rats found that chronic high-dose MSG exposure in rats caused fertility impairment, increased mortality in adults and newborns, and significant issues with liver, kidney function, serum lipids, testosterone, and uric acid. So it's not good for you, all right? And I think the notion here is that when it comes to amino acids, much like general protein intake, there's supposed to be a proper balance, okay? And when you're taking in a lot of MSG, it's upsetting that balance and producing bad health. Remember, it's the era of Maha now. We don't want bad health. So there's a couple other quickies here I need to throw out. Yes, Ketanji Brown. Okay, she's doing everything she can to stake out the position as being the dumbest Supreme Court justice of all. So dumb, she refuses to use logic. So there's in the links you'll find a mention of her. Let's see here. And then the glow-in-the-dark shrimp from Walmart. I'm sure you heard about that. Okay, I'm going to let it go. There's so many things to go through, but the links will be there. I encourage you to visit, and above all, subscribe. Please subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, oh yeah, the likes too. Like and subscribe. All right, thanks a lot. See you later.